Time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go!
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod, and this week we have a very special guest joining us from Nerdtropolis, the mayor of Nerdtropolis himself. His name is Sean, and we got Kirk coming back. Our friend Kirk is joining us again in Star Wars Escape Pod, and we sadly do not have our co-host Blake with us this week, but we will have him next week. So without further ado, let's dive in to our three top underrated Star Wars characters of choice, a bit of Star Wars news, and more on Nerdtropolis. Let's go.
Another happy landing.
All right. So first off, Kirk, welcome back.
Hello there. It is good to be back.
It's been a hot minute since you've been on. Mind you, it's been a little bit since we've had some Andor to talk about. So
I know. Last time I was here, I think it was the prison break on Andor. So I'm glad to be back, and I can finally say that I got out of Narkina 5. So
yeah.
with a few scratch wounds on me, but we're all good.
Yeah. Awesome. And joining us this week is Sean, the mayor of Nerdtropolis. So welcome, Sean.
Thanks for having me. I'm going to say it real quick. I have not finished Andor. I'm a bad Star Wars fan this month, the last couple months. I need to binge it all and get done with it so I can keep up with y'all.
That is all good. We'll keep the spoilers to an absolute minimum if possible.
It's all good.
But yeah, thankfully today, I mean, we don't have Andor on the subject, at least as the main subject goes. We'll be talking about some underrated Star Wars characters. So how exciting is that? I don't think we've done that before on this podcast. Surprisingly not. But yeah, first, before we get into that though, I mean, would you like to just talk about what Nerdtropolis does and just kind of, explain to the audience of just, what they can read up on there and what it is, what you do?
Back in 2019, I wanted to kind of just harness my inner nerd online, kind of like full-fledged. And so I just started this little Facebook page that started blowing up because I wanted the battle clickbait news online. So my purpose was to kind of get information out there without people needing to search all over to find just like that one sentence that tells you what the real news is. So it became a Facebook page that turned into a website that now is movie news, reviews, trailers, and celebrity interviews. And now I'm a full-fledged film critic with the Critics' Choice Association. So I'm full-blown movies all the time now and interviews with actors and directors and stuff like that. So just a little fun thing I started that now it's full-blown.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I've been enjoying seeing all the tweets you put out. So lots of pop culture, movie related stuff, and I'm a big movie guy. Kirk's a big movie guy, so yeah. So yeah, we can find you. What are your handles for Twitter, by the way? And
on media? Twitter, I'm just at Nerdtropolis _ for our Twitter page, and then I'm at Sean Taj. You can find me there on Instagram too and Facebook. It's all the same. Nerdtropolis and Sean Taj on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter.
Source of all the news is www.nerd-tropolis.com, right?
That's it. Yeah, nerd-tropolis.com is going to be your main place to go.
Awesome. So while our listeners are listening to us chat Star Wars, they can look that up and poke around. But yeah, actually, before I have a few Star Wars questions to ask you before we get in, and Kirk, you can pile on as well because I forget if I've even asked you these questions. But how did you get into Star Wars?
Yeah, if I have to remember correctly, so I was born in '89, so I think it was maybe when they're getting re-released on home video. I don't know what year that was, like 94, 95, I think. And then at the same time was like the Power of the Force toys coming out. Somewhere around that time when Blockbuster was carrying the trilogy and like releasing them in certain orders. I remember seeing the first one, grabbing the first one, and then grabbing Empire Strikes Back, which, to be honest, everyone loves, but as a kid, I didn't like that one. It kind of made me go to sleep at that very young age. But I do love it. But like at that time, it wasn't really capturing me. I guess maybe bad timing when I watched it. But then Return of the Jedi, when I saw that, for some reason, that really like got me super obsessed watching that one. So like I love the first two, but when Return of the Jedi, I got it on VHS at Blockbuster. Something, maybe the Ewoks. Maybe I love the Ewoks as a little kid, being an animal lover and stuff like that. So a lot of fun stuff in that one, even though I know a lot of people don't think it's the strongest one, which I do. It's not the strongest, but as a kid, it was that, and my parents getting me a lot of the really cool toys from the movies.
Nice. Yeah. That's when the special editions came out, right?
Yeah, and I remember, I'm trying to remember what I had. I don't know if I had a Jabba the Hutt like re-release they had. And I know I had like Luke and I had a couple other things. It's really hard to remember, but I had some really fun toys from that era that really made playing as a kid really fun.
Yeah. Power of the Force lineup is a much talked about lineup. There's some interesting figures. I think there was a few from from the comic lineup from the old Marvel series. I think, if I'm not mistaken. I feel like there was a few for that at that point.
There was a lot of stuff they were pushing out, which was really great, and especially since I wasn't around when it first came out, so it was really cool to get those types of toys.
Yeah. Kirk, what about you? I forget if I've asked you this or not, but yeah, what movie got you into Star Wars?
Yeah, no, that's really interesting you say that, because for me, when I was a kid growing up, Return of the Jedi was always my favorite. Like when Luke ignited his lightsaber and I saw it was green after watching the first two, I remember I was like, "What? That's possible?" and seeing like the amount of action that was in like that episode compared to the first two original trilogy, like it was like that's what really got me into Star Wars. And I always, with like my family and stuff, we used to make like pretend like home videos and stuff where we pretended to be Jedi and everything. I remember like, especially when I was a kid, we used to get, you know, when you have like a serviette roll, like a paper towel roll, and on the inside of that paper towel roll there was like a cardboard handle thing that we used to paint into lightsabers. Anyway, so that's what my introduction with Star Wars was. And I also remember being blown away when someone first told me that the prequels were made after the original trilogy, because as a kid I always just thought they were all made at the same time. I didn't quite understand like what computers were and stuff. So so like and then obviously now as I've gotten older and there's so much more Star Wars out now, like you can appreciate the other films a bit more. Like I think like for me, like 5 and 4 are definitely the stronger films in my opinion compared to 6. So, but I still love them all, and they still definitely act as a big foundation for, just like me and a lot of other people, for sources of inspiration and a way to kind of escape too. So yeah, I guess that's how I got into Star Wars. But apart from the movies, like I used to play so much of the Lego Star Wars games on, I think, PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 1. I can't remember exactly what it was, what they came out on. But when I did, I was never able to buy the memory cards to save my progress. So I always had to keep the PlayStation on, or if I turned it off, I had to start again. So yeah, those were fun times.
The golden age of video games right there. So for me it was it's a bit blurry because I think similar to you, Sean, I think it was Return of the Jedi as well, was always like my favorite original trilogy film. And I think it was around the time where the original trilogy was like re-released on VHS. It was like, I forget, it was like late 90s. It was around the same time that Lego Star Wars was just becoming a thing. Like it was like Lego's first ever license. So for me, it was like I had those first couple sets, you know, the teeny little boxes with the Darth Vader and like the Emperor Palpatine on the throne chair. So I had those, and I believe I watched those first. And Phantom Menace just came out kind of right around that time. So that was like released on VHS in the video store. I remember my dad bringing it home. I remember like watching it like with him, and then he fast forwards the part where like Maul gets cut in half, and so it's like it's good stuff. But I yeah, and then the neighbor kids, like they had those moving animated kind of Star Wars toys where you plugged Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Maul together, and you had this like Duel of Fates played, and they kind of fought each other, and they had a Jar Jar one. That would like make comments and dance around and stuff, and they would be like swinging toy lightsabers around outside. So it was like for me, it was like the peak of Star Wars. It was like, wow, like what is this cool like universe, right? And then it just kind of escalated until Revenge of the Sith came out. Like I remember playing Attack of the Clones on Game Boy, and then when Revenge of the Sith came out, I was like prime age for like really kind of getting into lore and like seeing the trailer just come on TV every time, running into the living room, just catch it on TV, because YouTube wasn't really a thing, so had to catch the glimpse while it was there, right? So yeah, it was a good time. But yeah, I think that was my first exposure. Have you read any Star Wars books or literature? And if you have, what would you recommend to listeners?
This was horrible, but I haven't. I do cover a lot of it, so I know like what's going on. I cover a lot of the comic book news, but I haven't personally read any of them. It's really hard for me to follow all that stuff because I've been throwing a lot of good stuff lately, and I guess it's all canon. So it's a lot. I'm not sure. Some of it is and some of it isn't. But I haven't, honestly. So I'm here to get recommendations from the both of you then what maybe I should pick up and just what you think is top tier from all the stuff they released. So y'all tell me that.
Yeah, I can get into some of that. Kirk, you have any suggestions for people or anything you hear?
Yeah, I have to admit I haven't read too much recently. In fact, I just recently, this is not really anything new, but I recently read like I think it's Alan Dean Foster's remake or retelling of like The Force Awakens, like the adaptation of that, because I always found it really interesting reading novels that were made after the movies came out. A couple of new details in there. That was interesting. And I'm still getting through the Thrawn series as well. I can't remember the author of who wrote Timothy Zahn, I think it was. So that's really great. But apart from everything else, those are kind of like the main things I've read, at least recently.
It's interesting that you mentioned the novelization, because what a lot of people might not know is the novelizations for the original films, I think they dropped like a couple months before the movie came out. And now they're doing it obviously like after, because they want to, the big reveal is supposed to be in the theater. But yeah, I truth be told, I think the only novelization I've read is the Attack of the Clones novelization by R.A. Salvatore, I think it was. And I think I did it on audiobook. But that's the only one I did. I just keep hearing that the Revenge of the Sith one is just like that's the one to do. But
yeah, right.
But yeah.
I heard the Plagueis audiobook was one of the best audiobooks out there, because it has like all these sound effects in it and different voice actors for each of the roles.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, as far as like EU stuff goes, that is my number one recommendation for anyone is the Darth Plagueis book, because it almost could be implemented into canon if they wanted it to. Like it's like that kind of close to being canon. And then the same author who wrote that book, James Luceno, he wrote the Tarkin novel, which happens to be a canon book. And there's a little Easter egg or two in there for a character that exists in both books and only in those two books. So like there is some ties to it. But yeah, if anyone were to like give any recommendation, like Plagueis is definitely a number one for me. And I really enjoyed, like, as far as recently in the canon, like I really enjoyed that Brotherhood book that just came out not long ago by Mike Shen. That was awesome. Super cool. Ties the Clone Wars series to Attack of the Clones just a much better, kind of makes that gap a bit smaller. So like I would probably start there for anyone who doesn't want to read like an ongoing series, like just one novel. Brotherhoods, that's a great place to start, especially with all the new like prequel stuff they're doing these days. I mean, Clone Wars, finally finished it. Tales of the Jedi, that was fantastic. And I'm sure we'll get more stuff. The Acolyte's going to be a thing very soon. So, getting knee deep in some Republic era stuff is definitely for anyone who's looking to explore the lore a bit more, that's just kind of the way to go.
And more Bad Batch is coming too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, more Bad Batch. Jedi Survivor, the new game by Respawn and EA, is coming out in February, I think it is. And so lots of cool stuff coming out. And yeah, that's a book that I would recommend for sure. But
we are so spoiled for Star Wars stuff.
Oh, dude,
it's so good.
It's unbelievable. I mean, like they could come up with a streaming service for Star Wars literature, and they could make a killing. Like, and I think I put a tweet out about that, and I don't think anyone replied, but I was like, man, like this is an idea in which, like, if I had to pay like, I don't know, $10 a month, whatever, just to access like all the Star Wars books, all the comics, whatever, they could make it whatever, $10, $20, whatever. It would just be like the place to be, for anyone who's kind of into that stuff. It's just unlimited access, right? Like I look at the Marvel Unlimited subscription and I'm like, okay, that's cool because you get all the Marvel stuff, but you don't get everything. If there's a Star Wars fan who wants access to all the Marvel comics, like they don't get access to like the novels or whatever, right? Because they're all like different publishers. So it would take some sort of like licensing agreement to kind of have all of their properties kind of delivered through one subscription service, I guess. But I don't know. It's an idea that I was like, yeah, they could probably monopolize on this if they really wanted to. Same with Disney soundtracks. Like they got so many Disney soundtracks. They could make their own Spotify if they wanted to.
That reminds me, if you've seen that photo where it's like what Disney thinks I'm subscribing for Disney Plus for, and it's like National Geographic, Pixar, and everything, but like it's just like, but it's me. It's like Star Wars, The Mandalorian, and then like all the other Star Wars stuff only.
Yeah, exactly. All right, cool. Well, I think we should let's hit the hot topic, shall we? 3 underrated characters. All right, Sean. We'll start off with you. You give us the top of your list, then Kirk, and then I'll spew off one, and we can just go around 3 times, and that way we can dish off all 3. But
all right, so you want all 3 right now?
Give us a top one. Give us a top one. Yeah.
Okay, the top one, I gotta go with my little man, Babu Freak.
Babu Freak. Oh, wow, an interesting choice. Okay, so what made you pick Babu Freak?
He was introduced, and we don't get much more of him. He's got to be like the baby Groot, or like the Groot other than Grogu. Secondary, he's kind of like the Groot of like Star Wars. Like, give him more stuff. He's a cute little guy, smart. Probably has an awesome backstory and like has been around a long time. So like, let's get more of him. They're doing shorts for everybody, so give him a short. He's short himself, but
you must be incredibly excited for Mandalorian season 3 then.
Because we get more, hopefully a lot more of him. But he needs some more stuff. He's kind of put in the back a little bit, bring in a little bit more closer front. The kids are gonna love him.
As far as his alien species go, I thought it was a really cool design, just very not quite Muppety, but almost like kind of I don't know, a little bit like Muppety, but not, it's because he's so small, right? It's like he almost needs to be like a toy. Like it's really cool. I love how they pulled off his realism.
He was definitely a lovable character, and hopefully we get a lot more of him. And like I said, give him like just Groot has his shorts. They just released these little mini episodes on Disney Plus. That'd be awesome to have him have the same treatment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Kirk, what's your number one?
Okay, my number one, although I'm now going to have to refrain from doing Babu Frick impressions because that's all I did after watching episode 9. Now I'm going to butcher his name, but my number... Yeah, exactly. My number one is Krill, or Krill, I think his name is, from Mando season 1. I was... I don't want to get into spoilers in case you haven't seen, or anyone listening hasn't seen Mando season 1. But I think he's voiced by Nick Nolte. I can't remember his name. I should have probably prepared this earlier. But anyway, I absolutely loved his character. We saw him, I believe, in episode 2, once Mando goes out on the hunt for the asset, and then he's just such a peaceful character, and I want to learn more about someone because he just seemed like he had a lot in his backstory. Obviously, he worked for the Empire his whole life, and it was I guess another example of just a citizen that got caught up throughout their whole journey, throughout all the effects of the Empire and stuff. But I loved him as such a peaceful character. I liked how kind of respectful he was for the Mandalorian and how dedicated he was to help out. And I think I wanted to see more of him, but obviously I don't think we've seen him in any other content since then. But yeah, that is definitely my top pick.
Nice. That's that is a good pick. I like that pick. If anyone can't remember Quill, he's the Ugnaught guy who teaches Mandalorian how to ride the man. I always forget the name of those things. That creature,
the big frog fishes looking thing.
He's the one that's he's voiced by Nick Nolte, right? That's Nick Nolte.
Yeah.
Nolte, that's right.
That's right. Yeah. That was a cool character. Is it one of those characters a bit like Lor Santeca in Episode 7, where he shows up for a hot minute and then he's kind of gone, and then you just have a lot of questions, and actually, it's the kind of character that you almost could expect in a show that they put out between Episode 3 and 4, and he just pops up, and it's like, oh, cool, like we get more to his story, like in this era. So, that's a great pick.
The Blurgs, they're called the Blurgs. That's right.
Blurg. Yes, thank you.
Was so I loved how they packed the 3 Blurgs in the Mandalorian ship towards the end of that season. They just looked so funny. I loved them, and I loved Krill. He was great.
Yeah. This pick. This name has. She has reason to be on my list, but also, I guess at this point might be a little bit of an outdated choice. is Mon Mothma, and I only say that because obviously Andor featured her, prominently as one of the main characters. But prior to Andor, for the longest time, she's always been a very important, substantial figure, within the rebellion. And she's kind of popped up here and there. And recently on the podcast, we actually did a What Happened episode for all of her appearances through the canon so far, and kind of talked about her character in depth. But it's always just one of those things. She pops up, she's a cameo appearance, and then she's gone again. And it's like, this is the person, other than Bail Organa, this is like the only other person that's really so high up in the rebellion that and still kind of lives to tell the tale by the end of the original trilogy, that it's kind of worth I guess remembering her as a more prominent figure. So thanks to Andor, now she's a bit more kind of in the spotlight, but she was kind of my number one pick for underrated, I guess. Okay, back to you, Sean. What's your number 2?
All right. Maybe a controversial pick. I pick Jar Jar Binks, man.
all the way.
Hate. He gets too much hate still to this day. And how long has it been? They canceled him too quickly.
Yeah, they did. I agree. I've got a lot of love for Phantom Menace, and I mean Jar Jar. Like, it's kind of too bad that. Here's the thing, like I don't dislike the fact that his appearances were kind of diminished as the movies went on, but at the same time I fully appreciate what he did in the first movie. I don't have anything against it at all. I really do love his appearances in the Clone Wars a lot. Like when he shows up in the Clone Wars, every single time I do actually laugh. I think it's just like his character kind of delivers what it's needed in that sort of storytelling. For some reason, they just kind of pull it off really well in animated form. So I don't know if it's just because it's an animated show, they're able to kind of do, I guess, what that character is really kind of inspired for, but comical, I guess. That's a great.
It's like, where has he been? Like the latest trilogy. Like, you think he just disappeared? Like, what happened? Like, he doesn't show up at all or try to help in any aspect. He just wants to go into hiding. Like, I want to know why he wasn't a part of the fight anymore. He gave up.
I love him. I mean, my favorite episode or feature of him was when I think he was with Padme and in the Clone Wars, and he pretended to be a Jedi for a solid 20 minutes. Like, That was just great. But I absolutely love, although, he did get less screen time as the episodes went on, like episode 1, 2, and 3. Although his screen time went down, his effect on the galaxy went up so much. if you think about it, like everything that happened post episode 2 and especially episode 3 going into the Empire, like his effect on everything changing is just like, for like what, a minute or less screen time that he had, his impact was huge. I would argue his impact on the galaxy and the story was almost as large as some of the, you know, big key main characters, but
yeah,
still,
I mean, like
he's
the one who makes the call to offer emergency powers to the Supreme Chancellor, right? And it's like, looking back, it's like, man, I guess if Padme was actually there, like, would she have done that? Like, I don't think so. But you know, he was kind of coerced into doing it, right?
Palpatine is really just a puppet on Jar Jar Binks's whole game. That's what it's really all about.
Yeah. The Darth Jar Jar theory. Kirk, what do you
I like that theory, to be honest. I don't think that's a good theory. I don't want to see him go dark. It's funny, but like, come on, you know, he's like the Superman of that franchise, but people don't want to admit it. Like he said, he was pulling a lot of strings and doing some good stuff.
Maybe
he was coming to save the day.
He's got his own redemption arc in there.
Yeah.
Kirk, what's your number 2?
Yeah, I mean, actually, one more thing on Jar Jar before I say number 2. I think it'd be really, honestly, like, nice to see what his reaction was to, like, obviously Anakin turning and all of his friends kind of, and the people that he met throughout, you know, the galaxy, and what happened after Order 66. I think it'd be nice, especially considering his relationship with Anakin and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, maybe episode 10, 11, and 12 can explore that. I'm not sure. But my second one, again from New Era Star Wars, is Chirrut Imwe, played by Donnie Yen. I love Ip Man, and I think he needs a whole series for himself, especially because obviously he didn't use a lightsaber or anything in Rogue One. But yeah, like I thought his presence was amazing. Like he had some really great stunt scenes and some awesome dialogue. I'd love to see some more of him. I don't think we've seen him anywhere else, but for a character, I think the only other lightsaber we saw in Rogue One was obviously, like, again, spoilers for Rogue One. If anyone out there hasn't seen it, I'll say now. But yep, definitely worth it this time. Is obviously like Vader's at the end, but of course, like I just thought his approach towards the Force and his passion for the Force was kind of explored in a different way that others hadn't shared in the past beyond the Jedi. So yeah, Donnie Yen, Chirrut Imwe is definitely my number 2, but very close number 2. I love that character, and my favorite line from him was when the guy puts the bag over his head and he's like, "Are you kidding me? I am blind." That's great.
Yeah, that is a great character, and Donnie Yen's awesome too. If anyone wants to read more about the Guardians of the Whills, there is a book I think it was for junior readers. It's called Guardians of the Whills, and it does tell a story about Chirrut and Baze, or if that's his name, before they meet the characters in Rogue One. So I still need to read it. It's on my list. But yeah, my second is Watto, because I feel like without Watto, there was a lot that just wouldn't happen the way it did, right? Like Watto's actually kind of the one who bought Anakin and Shmi from Gardula the Hutt, right? And if Gardula the Hutt still had Anakin and Shmi, I guess maybe Qui-Gon wouldn't have found Anakin in the first place. And then Watto is also the guy that Anakin goes back to when he's looking for his mother, and he actually tells him where to find her. And I don't know, it was a bit of a, like, I was trying to think of just characters that didn't get a lot of screen time, that, you know, a bit underrated. People don't really think of it maybe like too much, and Watto was just one of those characters. Like, yeah, I guess without Watto, like, you know, he's not nearly as prominent as Qui-Gon Jinn or something. He was like featured through the whole movie, but I guess without him, like, a lot of stuff probably wouldn't play out the way it does. So that's kind of the reason why he ended up on my list. But
yeah, that was a close pick for me. I was thinking about him as well. And when Anakin goes back, you can see he loved Anakin, even though it was a slave thing.
Yeah,
he was like he was proud of him, it seemed like, and then he wanted to help him and stuff, and was sad that, you know, his mother he had to sell his mother. But that's how it goes in the Star Wars world. But yeah, that's a good pick.
Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth noting. Yeah, for sure. He wasn't like a corrupt, like evil slave master or anything like that. He was actually relatively like a pretty, all around well-respected guy, I guess. At the end of the day,
but it's hard to put those two together. Well-respected slave owner.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
it's hard, but I think everyone gets what we're trying to say.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
He was the nicest slave owner in the galaxy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he held his end of the bargain, right? Is what I mean. He's like, he's got some honor to him. He wanted to back out, but it's like, yeah, we could take this up with the Hutts, and he was like, nah, take him. So, I guess, and he could have lied to Anakin when he comes back. He could have lied to, it's like, oh, she died, but no, he actually did have some positive personality.
Yeah, he's pretty much a Saint Watto. He's just an absolute gift giver.
Yeah, I think he's like I guess gotten less evil maybe as he's aged. He's just turned into like a more senile like old man and just kind of like softened up a little bit even more.
He's the Clint Eastwood of Star Wars.
Yeah.
A grumpy man. That's what we'll be
pretty much.
Oh man.
Was his character completely CG at the time, or was it? Yeah. Or was it a puppet?
Fully CG. I believe there probably was like a stand-in puppet, but the whole thing was replaced.
Yeah, because he looked like for 99 and 2002, like it looked pretty great, especially when Anakin went back to Tatooine and saw him. Like I remember when watching it again recently, like you can see like his facial hair and everything. It's kind of grown compared to the first one. So hats off to
the second. I have a feeling that they built his head maybe, kind of built like his head for certain spots. Because I pulled up a picture and it looks like his head is real and his back is all CGI in certain parts. But obviously, like I think later on they did a full CGI when it got better. But it looks like they did build a practical head at least.
Oh, for the first movie, you mean? Yeah. Maybe. I guess maybe in some shots where they didn't need to open his mouth, like maybe they could have used a prop, I guess. But by the second film, they had subsurface scattering for their 3D models, so they were able to get a lot more detail close up. So Attack of the Clones, you can definitely be sure it was 100% CGI. So let's circle around to our third one. Sean, what do you got for your number 3?
All right, we're talking underrated, but everyone's going to be like, you picked the best overrated. But I'm going to change this up. This is some love. Rey is totally underrated. I'm sorry to say, totally underrated with all the hate she gets. And we need her back for another like trilogy. There's more to tell. You can't just send her off at the very end with the lightsaber and that's the end. We need more. I need to know what happens. I'm sorry to say, people not liking the route it went, but we need more Rey. That's for sure. Rey needs to come back.
Yeah, it's always like a bit of a shame when you have a good character that's just not written well, I guess, or written in a way that leaves people like wondering if there was going to be more to it. And I don't know. I guess I like the character. I do like the character Rey. I've always liked Kylo Ren, Ben Solo. I think it's definitely got more complexity to him, but I never had anything against Rey, but it's just it is kind of too bad that we're like in this state of like she has been in 3 movies, and she does feel a bit underrated because it's like
it's her movies. It's like
it's
all about her.
Yeah, exactly. It should be her movies, but we're still left with this empty feeling inside, and it's like it's clearly there's something up with that, right? So.
And we got a lot of like females loving Star Wars because of Rey, and little girls getting into it because of Rey. So I love seeing that. Like a huge new fan base has emerged because of Rey. When you go like to the Disney parks and you see Rey, in character over there, the little girls are going crazy, and like the interaction you see is really sweet to see. So that's how important Rey is really to the franchise, and she definitely needs to continue her story in some extent, live action or animated or comic form, and it just needs to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that by far is the most important thing. Like I remember when The Force Awakens came out, seeing how many little girls were like really excited and dressing up as her like straight away after the movie came out, and even before like all the costumes were available, they were already dressing up as her. And I remember when I watched The Force Awakens for the first time, and I saw like her staff that obviously wasn't like a saber or anything. For me, I was like, by episode 8 / going into 9, like she has to have a double-ended like lightsaber like that, which is what they did, but right in the last 60 seconds of episode 9. So I'm really keen to see them bring out some more stuff with Rey. I think Daisy Ridley is an amazing actress. Like, she's so positive and she's got so much energy. And I actually got a little bit excited recently because I saw that she was over at Lucasfilm over on like I think a couple weekends ago for like a luncheon or catch up with like the old cast.
Yeah.
That's what they said. But who knows what it actually, was for. So I think it'd be great to see her, even if it was stories before her time after, episode 7 and everything. But you're right. I feel like I've just had, even though we've got 3 movies with her, I've still just had entree. Like I want the main course of her story and a bit of dessert too,
Yeah. This is kind of where I think things like animated series and books and stuff can really flesh out a character really well, because some characters, you watch the films and they might feel underrated, and then if you consume all this other stuff, then they feel a bit more complete. But she's still in that category of characters where she's just in the movies and not a whole lot in that other material, and which is really too bad, because like there's we recently reviewed a book called Shadows of the Sith, which really kind of fills in a lot of, I guess, plot holes and a lot of gaps that episode 9 left, with the Achia Bastoon plot line and like Rey's parents' assassination, all that stuff. And why Lando was on Pisana. And I did like the book. It had a bit of an odd ending, but overall, I think we kind of just concluded that a book like that is very necessary, when we get a movie like episode 9, and it's almost like, this is a nice way to flesh out some characters. And Luke Skywalker got a huge spotlight in that novel, and it was almost very, very needed because of just the result of that character through the later 2 films of that trilogy. And it was just kind of nice to get a bit more of a complete feeling. But Rey has, she was a little girl in that book and didn't have much appearance. And other than that, there's maybe like 2 other novels that she's been in, which is kind of maybe worth reading. Yeah, I don't know. I guess there was one third of a book called Before the Awakening, which is like a book that precedes episode 7 and tells like the story of Rey right before episode 7, tells a story of Poe right before episode 7, and then it tells a story of Finn, like right before episode 7 as well. And it kind of explains a few things that the movie doesn't really talk about. But that's definitely worth kind of getting into for anyone who wants to explore Rey a bit more. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like we could use a bit more, I guess, stuff with her in it. Kirk, what's your third choice?
Oh man, I'm kind of inspired to change my third choice now, because originally I was going to say Qui-Gon, but Qui-Gon is, I think, I wouldn't say Qui-Gon's underrated actually, just because so many people love Qui-Gon. But I was looking at some interviews of Dave Filoni talking about how important Qui-Gon's decision was to change the whole story and everything. So I won't say Qui-Gon, but that's what I was going to say. So I've been.
But he's underutilized. But he's underutilized. He's not great. He's underutilized.
Oh, for sure. I think that's a much better word to use. Like, although we did see a little bit of him in Tales of the Jedi, I think we haven't seen, and also he was in Rebels. I'm not sure. I can't actually remember. But yes, definitely underutilized, and I hope we do see more of him, because yeah, he's such a wise character and one of those characters that isn't completely like, I don't want to say like has is head over heels for the Jedi Order, but kind of is almost in that bit of a hesitant area in terms of like the whole council and everything. But anyway, underutilized, but I'm going to cheat here and say that my third underrated character is Finn, because John Boyega was I think treated quite well in terms of his character for episode 7, but 8 and 9, like he just resorted to screaming out Rey's name, and that was about it. And I don't think that's obviously not John's fault at all. It's like mainly the script and stuff, although there were a couple moments where he was good, but I think he was great, like ex-stormtrooper or ex-janitor, I guess, turned into a rebellion fighter. And especially like those moments in The Last Jedi where like he's character itself still had flaws. Like he wanted to jump out of the ship and just bail despite, coming all this way. I thought he was great, and I really especially was interested to see and it was quite obvious that towards episode 9 they were kind of hinting towards him having some force powers, but or being force sensitive. But yeah, they saved it right to the end. So underrated character. I think he's a great actor. I loved playing him in Battlefront. I think it was good fun. But yeah, I hope we do see more of him in the future. I don't know whether or not he'll return for it, but just given from what I hear experience-wise in episode 9. But I think I really do hope we see more of him in the future, and I think he's got a lot of interesting backstory to tell. Obviously, his character being taken from his family to fight for the First Order. So yeah, that's my third one. But that's a late inclusion because I was inspired by Ray, and I think I want to see more of him.
Yeah, it is too bad, like about John Boyega, because I know that he's pretty upset about it. And when they marketed episode 7, they marketed him with the lightsaber and everything. And then in episode 9, you kind of get that little tease that he's like maybe kind of getting the feels for like the Force. But yeah, nothing really ever comes about that character. It's almost too bad that he's kind of turned into this meme of just like screaming Ray all the time. Because that's just kind of like, it's like, I mean, I don't know. A character like that, it just deserves a bit more, right? No matter what movie it's from, a character like that should get a little bit more story. So, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and just maybe not controversially as well, but I mean, his fight with Kylo in episode 7, like the way he screamed out when like the blade tilted into his chest and everything, like I thought it was great acting, and it was. And yeah, I do hope we see more of him. And like I said, I don't think it's John Boyega's fault at all. It's just him resorting to screaming and stuff. But yeah, I have my fingers crossed in the future that we'll see more of him in the future. And I'm sure that if a good script comes along with some good planning and he reads it, being a Star Wars fan himself, I'm sure he'll take something on.
Yeah, absolutely. My third and final choice here was Barriss Offee. And I feel like she was really an underrated character. We saw her maybe twice, maybe 3 times throughout the Clone Wars. But the reason why I chose her is because her speech that she gives when she's framed, when the truth comes out that she's actually the one who bombed the Jedi Temple and framed her friend Ahsoka for it. I feel like it was a prominent kind of speech that she gives that really just, definitely affected a lot of people that were there, right? And there was politicians there from the Senate. There was the Jedi Council was there. Anakin was there. Ahsoka was there. 2 of which people left the Order, right? And there was, a fair few people, including some of the Jedi Temple guards, which we know the Grand Inquisitor was a temple guard as well, and he ended up becoming the Inquisitor, because he also did feel something toxic about the Jedi Order, right? So I feel like her speech was such kind of a influential turning point for a lot of people's opinions on how they thought about the Jedi Order in that arc. And what was really sad is later when they did Star Wars Rebels, they came up with an Inquisitor by the name of Seventh Sister. And Seventh Sister is of the same species, I believe, and yet never confirmed to be Barriss Offee at all. And a bit of a spoilers, like they did kill off that character and still never acknowledged that it was Barriss Offee. And I always just thought to myself, like, this particular character, we don't know what happens to her, right? Like we don't know what happens to Barriss Offee, still. With all the stuff out there, we still don't know what happens to her, and yet somehow she just never becomes an Inquisitor. Like she kills innocent people, sets off a bomb in the Jedi Temple. I fully would expect her to become an Inquisitor, but yeah, we don't have that confirmation yet, as far as I know. And I feel like we just need more of her. Like she was such a great character, played really well, and I feel like if the Ahsoka show ever went down a road in which it kind of flashed back to those events, or maybe that character makes its return, then justified. But that's the last one on my list.
she could show up in Ahsoka. That'd be great. I really wish Ahsoka really focuses on a lot of flashbacks. So, because I mean, Ahsoka at that age, she's not going to be as action-packed. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm hoping Ahsoka's an action-packed show. But if it's not and kind of drawn out, it'd be nice to see some action-packed like flashbacks of a lot of battles and fights.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Yeah.
Because the last we saw of her, she went to prison, right? That was pretty much it.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. Yeah, she just went to prison, and that was the end of season 5. And then when season 6 came out, it was like a half season, right? So like, because they canceled the show halfway through production of season 6. So when that half season dropped on Netflix at the time, now it's all on Disney. But yeah, that character wasn't in it at all, and neither was Ahsoka. And then when they finally years later did season 7 as the final season, we got gypped because there was actually a planned 8 seasons of the Clone Wars before they kind of scrapped 20 something odd episodes. There was a few that were adapted into a novel, comic book, proxy animation series. There was one arc that was fully finished and then spun off into its own show, which was the Bad Batch story arc. But we got gypped on a few missing Clone Wars arcs. So maybe she was supposed to have some sort of role later on in the show, which maybe just none of us still know about. But I feel like Rebels did try to wrap up a lot of loose ends that Clone Wars in the season 7 absence era couldn't really tell. That show never did anything, right? And then season 7 never confirmed anything either. And then there still hasn't been a book or comic that's really kind of talked about it either. So I'm like, well, it would have been nice to get something, but yeah, I mean, yeah, oh well. But yeah, Ahsoka's going to be
in that case. In that case, I think she's very much well alive, because obviously any Jedi that was locked up during that time would no longer be locked up after everything considered. So
yeah,
maybe we'll see more of her.
Well, she's the kind of character who they could bring back. You know, I feel like is the kind of character that if Palpatine approached and just kind of, you know, did his little thing to, you know, to like corrupt someone's mind and bring them over to the dark side, like she would be the perfect candidate, right, to become an inquisitor or an agent of his somehow, and you know, there she is in a Republic prison, and he's like the head honcho chancellor guy that has control over everything. You know, push of the button and she's out, right? So I feel like, yeah, there's got to be a good story, like a good juicy story they're probably saving her for, and maybe some Ahsoka flashbacks would be it. I have no idea, but that would be really cool if she was the villain.
I'm gonna make the prediction now, and this is future spoilers, so it could be a spoiler, but I don't know. Like, if I get it right, I have been known for getting most of my, you know, future spoilers wrong. But I reckon, now that I think about it, that she could be the second main antagonist in the Ahsoka show. Obviously, she's looking for Thrawn. That's what was suggested in Mando. But I really do feel that now that you remind me of her, given that she's underrated, and Dave Filoni's also directing Ahsoka, given that he also did those episodes of the Clone Wars, I feel like that, considering that she was a close friend to Ahsoka, I think there would be some nice character developments, even just for Ahsoka as well, having discussions with her and them crossing paths again. And given that they're obviously not the same species, but I feel like they would be a similar age at that time if they both live. Obviously, Ahsoka lives, but if they both live towards that certain age limit, because I think at that time they're around about 40, 50 years old. So yeah, I'm going to make the prediction now that we'll see her in the Ahsoka show. But if I'm wrong, let's cut this part of the podcast.
I hope you're right.
You're right.
Yeah, if I'm right, we'll audio clip it.
Yeah, no,
I don't think she's gonna set up being like the seventh sister, which is a great theory. But if she was, you know, freed from the prison and just went into hiding, and somehow Ahsoka and them cross paths and asks her for help to find Thrawn, and they kind of like team up, that'd be really cool too, to see her redemption that way for, you know, crossing her best friend and somehow feeling bad about it and be like, okay, yeah, I wronged you.
Yeah, that would be a cool story as well. I feel like, oh man, that's such a cool idea though, that like her coming back into the Ahsoka show. I almost don't want to think about it just because I don't want to be disappointed when it doesn't happen. But I don't know, who knows, right? Maybe Kirk's right.
I can take the blame for that. But I can't remember in that Clone Wars episode where she did obviously come out and fight. I think she may have fought Anakin. Did she have 2 red lightsabers at the time, or she pulled them out of nowhere?
She steals Ventress's lightsabers. Is what happened.
Right, that's right. Yeah, because then I was just thinking, how did she have the time just to bleed 2 red lightsabers? Like, well, isn't that a little bit risky? But obviously, I couldn't remember the episode, because that was also the time where Anakin like almost lost his cool in front of all of these students. Isn't that right? Because that's what happened to Ahsoka.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that importance that she has to Ahsoka, I'm gonna stop there because I don't want to get your hopes up, but just saying.
You're killing me. I really do hope for the best for that show. I mean, the fact that Dave's kind of helming it, and I mean, it's his character, right? Like, Ahsoka's his kind of product, and I can only imagine that it'll be fantastic. But the one Book of Boba episode that he did was like trophy award winning Star Wars product. So it's good stuff.
Absolutely. And if I'm wrong, exactly. If I'm wrong, she'll be in season 2 of Ahsoka. So
yeah.
I'm hedging my bets here.
Future speculation. But that's a topic I had. That's something that I think you, Sean, had a lot of interest in, is like how where these Disney shows are going. Like, did you have any kind of theories, things that you thought of that would be like, things that you might see coming, things that you thought of that would be really cool?
It's interesting to see like a lot of shakeup happening, over at Disney with a lot of their IPs and stuff like that. Now that you heard, pretty recent that they're taking a look at the movies, but putting a pause on the movies, which I think is a shame. I feel like, with Marvel and Star Wars and other, IPs, they're pushing so many series out. I think that's a little exhausting at the same time. And not everyone's watching all of them if you look at it. I'm sure there's a lot of people, maybe not like big Star Wars fans, but a lot of people that got hooked on The Mandalorian that weren't Star Wars fans, kind of like my parents. They love The Mandalorian. They have not touched Book of Boba yet, for many reasons, but like time is obviously one of them. But that's the thing, you're not grabbing those just casual lovers of the Star Wars movies, what Mandalorian did. So I'm really intrigued what they're going to do. Obviously that Rangers of the New Republic movie is canned, I believe, and then so is Rogue Squadron's not happening. So all that movie's done. There was a Lando movie that was supposed to be happening, or a series.
Yeah,
haven't heard anything.
Who knows
that.
what that is going? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then Acolyte is going to seem awesome, but it just seems like a little disheveled.
Yeah,
where Star Wars is going.
I totally agree, because Lando, that was going to be a series. Donald Glover was set to return. Who knows? Ever since they made that announcement, like, I have no idea what's happening with that. There was that animated droids series as well with R2 and 3PO. It was supposed to be some sort of, or maybe it was like a animated movie or something, and that was supposed to be. It was like
Star Wars, a droid story.
Yeah, and I don't, again, like what happened to that, right? And then Rogue Squadron, that movie got shelved, and then Rangers of the New Republic got canned. And there was I'm pretty sure there was another thing, but recently, all of the future Star Wars movies they've kind of hit pause on that for now, and really just kind of focused in on the series aspect of things. But
and then Taika, it was supposed to be a Taika movie too.
Yeah, which
untitled one, but
I also
don't want to see anything from him.
What's the latest update on that one? Is it supposed to happen still, or like?
I don't know. That could even be the Kevin Feige produced one, because Feige was supposed to be producing a Star Wars movie, but now Marvel is kind of re-looking at how they're doing things. With the movies, at least, they don't want to push so many out in a year. Kind of go back to how special they were. So, right. I just think right now Andor is going. Everyone's going crazy for Andor. It was nominated for a bunch of awards. So for best drama and best actor and a bunch more. So they're really focusing on Andor right now. And then you got Bad Batch. And then I think Ahsoka and Mandalorian season 3. But other than that, I don't foresee what Star Wars is going to be doing or delivering to us after all that. Oh, then you get the Acolyte. But other than that, there's movie-wise and some major series. I don't know.
Skeleton Crew was the newest show in the lineup that they announced, which is also kind of being fast tracked to come out next year, I believe, or maybe it's the year after. But this the Jude Law led younger targeted audience.
2023 apparently for this one, and it's set at the same time as Ahsoka and The Mandalorian.
Right. Yeah. So that was a very recent addition that wasn't previously announced earlier when they made all that other news about Lando and this and that.
Right, that was a Star Wars Celebration announcement.
Yeah.
The ones that we were just speaking of was 2020, 2 years ago, and this one was just this year. So a lot has changed in a couple of years.
It's like their priorities have totally kind of been turned upside down in a way.
And I wonder if it's because Filoni is now having more control. I'm really curious of how much and taking away from everyone else so he can kind of fledge it out. I mean, he's like the Feige of Star Wars, so
yeah, it makes me wonder. I mean, like, ever since because since they made those announcements, they've probably had some, I guess, some stats, some Disney Plus, I guess, information as to what's popular, because Tales of the Jedi kind of came out of left field, and that was obviously kind of targeted to fans of the Clone Wars, fans of the Bad Batch. Really just a very short kind of 6-part thing that I really hope they make more episodes and more seasons for, because I think it's a brilliant idea to do, small kind of character arcs like that, which kind of fill in some gaps here and there for, whoever really. They could kind of make it wherever, since it kind of jumps around the timeline quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, it is curious that a lot of these things have kind of shifted priorities in terms of like when they're coming out, when they're going to be released. But yeah, Kirk, what are your thoughts on all this stuff? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I feel like with streaming in general, we like, obviously Bob Iger is back as Disney's CEO, but I really feel like the streaming wars is going from an acquisition model, so trying to get as many subscribers as possible, to retention now. Because we're seeing these big platforms like Netflix and Disney Plus, the subscriber numbers growth is kind of, flattening out just because it's competition now. There's more to watch, but in the end, consumers kind of only have, let's say, 18 hours that they're awake throughout the day. So you don't get more time, but we're getting more and more TV shows. And although TV shows are like really great when it comes to character development, because you do get more time to flush out characters and see stuff, the problem with that is that it obviously does take more time to do all that. So consumers and viewers, especially me in particular, like, I don't have all the time to catch up on all these TV shows. Like, there's just so much out there now. And for me personally, like going to the movie theater, sitting down and watching a movie, with friends and family is like an experience. And obviously the distributor, the movie theater, gets cash straight away once you pay for the box office ticket. But now these new shows, obviously there's millions of dollars being poured into them. I know like Kenobi was like $90 million the budget, and Andor was even more than that. But that money is now, I think, being more so funneled in trying to keep people on the streaming platforms themselves. So I feel like as we get less and less time to watch these shows, and as these shows don't bring in new money for subscribers, apart from when obviously platforms increase their pricing, there's just gonna be so much streaming fatigue, and that's not just Star Wars in general. So personally, I hope for Star Wars that we get more movies and less of these TV shows. Just because, as much as I loved Andor, I loved Mandalorian, and I really do like parts of Kenobi and Boba Fett, I'm finding that it's so hard to keep up with everything. And I used to watch all the Marvel stuff, but now I've just kind of run out of time, and which is a little bit sad, I guess. But I think that's the way it's going. And I think now with Bob Iger coming back in, we'll see. Obviously, like, he built Disney Plus, or not obviously himself, but he led obviously the transition into Disney Plus and entering into that market. But I think there's going to be a shift and a reassessment on how, especially considering the pandemic is almost over, I guess, and more people going back to the movie theaters, that we'll see some more Star Wars movies. Because in the end, I think the best Star Wars content has stemmed from like the original trilogy, and that's what grew Star Wars in the first place. And obviously, those are proof that good cinema and good entertainment doesn't have to come in a form of 8 hours long. It can be concentrated in 2-hour blocks where we get just as great stories to be told. So yeah, I mean, that's my take in the end. I really hope we see more Star Wars movies in the future, and we get some of these shows wrapped up in a bow in the near future, plus maybe one or two. But yeah, I hope they don't exhaust it too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's funny that this is the general consensus, because I just watched this finale episode for the 6th season of Rick and Morty, and there was a little quip shot out at Disney for filming so many Star Wars shows, like, quote unquote, like on the same green screen, and it was a funny little joke at that. It was just like like talking about this, it's true. Like, I mean, like it really has kind of, the focus is more, I guess, this Disney Plus thing has always kind of been an investment, for Disney, right? And to eventually, I guess, take on as many people as possible to, provide, whatever it is, $12 a month, to keep that trajectory going up. Like, they got to keep pumping out new shows, right? Otherwise people will just like, all right, yeah, seen that, nothing new, I'm gonna just unsubscribe, whatever. Like, I know a lot of people who will just subscribe to, Netflix or HBO or Crave or whatever, for just a month or two just to watch a show, and they'll just be unsubscribing like right after, when it's wrapped up. So
I think Dave Filoni creatively wants to push for TV shows, because that's where he is most experienced in. Yeah. And like in the end, like, we get good quality Star Wars. That's all you really want in the end. So yeah, I don't know. That's my perspective on what Star Wars will be in the future, TV or film, comes more from like what I think the overheads will, because in the end, that's how the decisions are made. But now I think that Jon Favreau have had a lot of like critical success with these shows, that they're going to be the main voice and I guess the creative side of things. So we'll see. I don't know. I might have a different perspective on other people, but in the end, look, if we get good Star Wars and we get to escape more to a galaxy far, far away, isn't that all that matters?
Yeah.
They need to push Jon Favreau away from TV, to be honest. He needs to go back to the movies, and so he can deliver a good Star Wars movie. Take his buddy Robert Rodriguez. Let's get some of these guys that were working on The Mandalorian and just give them a movie to do. I don't think that would work.
Yeah.
That's what,
No,
Iron Man 1 and Chef. I love Chef so much. I think that's a great movie.
Oh, it's such a good movie.
That was his response to not being able to be creative with Iron Man 2. I think the underlying thing is, it's got Scarlett Johansson and Robert Downey Jr. in it. But man, I so agree with that, Sean. Like, if he did a movie again, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, that would be. I really like Chef. And Jon Favreau, he's an awesome storyteller, and it would be cool to get him and his crew in the Star Wars film, area. Like, to be honest, like, I have no idea how Taika, like, nothing against Taika, but like, I have no idea how a guy like him managed to score, getting a Star Wars movie to direct rather than Jon Favreau, or who knows, because they've actually had success, right? Like a guy like John or Dave, like, they've had success on Disney Plus with the series. It's like, why not give them a chance at a movie or something to but I don't know. Like, Sean, what are your thoughts?
I don't know how they gave Taika a Taika movie with Thor: Love and Thunder. It was all Taika. He directed it, he wrote it, he started as Korg, he was narrated the whole movie, and then when they killed Korg, he still showed up in the back of the head. Like, he can't get rid of Korg. Sorry, I had to vent a little bit about Taika. I don't want him to do a Star Wars movie. I feel like it wouldn't work if he had full control. But like Ragnarok, he didn't write it, so he can direct. But I think we'll see what happens with this movie.
Yeah,
I would prefer if, and again, this might be controversial, but I loved Glass Onion and Knives Out, the two Knives Out movies. So I hope Rian Johnson honestly comes back. Last Jedi, obviously, debatably one of the most controversial, fan dividing Star Wars stuff of all time, but we won't go over into that. But I don't know. I feel like if he didn't actually, write everything and he had John and Dave, on the script for whatever it might be, I think he could pull something off. I would prefer him over Taika, but then again, I would also prefer John and Dave over Rian Johnson. But still, hey,
the hierarchy of preferred directors, right?
Directors.
Yeah. No, I agree. I actually did. I did like, the Rian Johnson. Like, the thing about Last Jedi is it is divisive, right? And it's always a tough subject, but like I always look at it from the standpoint of him only being able to do one movie locked in a trilogy in which he doesn't really know what's next and he didn't have any control before, right? And that's
it's not his fault at all.
Yeah, and that's a really tough thing to do. So like I've always just kind of I've still maintained like, you know, big respect for the guy. I love Knives Out. Knives Out was fantastic. You know, I still haven't seen Glass Onion yet. I plan to watch it very soon, but yeah, it would be cool to just see what he's able to do under the pretense that he's not locked into a particular story or particular characters, right?
Well, they didn't have a story. That was the problem with the new trilogy. They didn't know what they were doing.
Right.
So it's coming on him. And you don't bring back the first director, so you bring JJ back, so you bring him in, and then you bring JJ. The problem was they should have stuck with JJ and locked him in, and then give Ryan his own thing or a spin-off or like the next set. Yeah. So I don't blame Ryan at all.
Right.
My favorite thing about like what you just said there about the sequel trilogy is when I think Daisy really did an interview with, I can't remember the host's name on the Star Wars YouTube channel, but she's like, I got a call from JJ 2 weeks before production, and he was like, guess what we're doing with Rey? Like, you're Palpatine's granddaughter. And then she's like, and then I got a call a week after that, and then I wasn't his granddaughter. And there was they were choosing right up until like a week before production.
That's ridiculous.
Like, I was like, yeah, insane. So I can't for the life of me remember what we were just talking about. But I remember there was some connection I was making there.
Right. It was either a Palpatine or Kenobi. They're trying to make it a Kenobi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Between the two. And I'm like, why even giving Kenobi something? Let that go.
Yeah, it's like, like a guy like Rian Johnson, like how is he supposed to work with that? Right? Like they don't even know what they're doing. This guy's doing his movie. All of a sudden, the next thing he knows, Colin Trevorrow is like, you know, heading out the door. And it's like, okay, everything that Ryan was leading up to is now scrapped, and they're rewriting the whole thing. So like, where's this going, right? And it's just, it is really a shame because these are like the pillar Star Wars movies we're talking about. So I mean, it's just too bad that there isn't more solid storytelling going on. And I read a very interesting article recently about James Cameron and how he was inspired by the Lord of the Rings trilogy to write all the Avatar scripts before even doing any of them, because it's like, if there's no foundation, why bother, right? So, let's plan out the story.
It's world building.
Yeah.
George Lucas did it. He built that world and expanded it, and he had his ideas trickled for decades if he wanted to continue it. And so that's a shame that he left. And, I really wish he stayed on to some extent. I mean, he does visit and stuff like that, and I do talk to him, but
yeah,
he doesn't have any control or any real input when it comes to that. But yeah, it's a shame for sure.
Oh man. Well, we're hitting just about time here. So is there anything you guys want to bring up before we wrap up today?
I hope we get a Babu Frick and a Krill trilogy each, just to satisfy both me and Sean. Yeah. Because
they should team up. They should team up somehow. They have to cross paths. They're both old. They both they both tinker. They both build things, and that'd be really funny if they had like a mini series where like it's like a lab and they're teaching kids how to build stuff.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome. Yeah, even some shorts. That's where I think some good TV can come from, Just short 10-minute episodes of stuff like Tales of the Jedi. That'd be good.
Oh, we didn't talk about this real quick. Like Marvel's the special presentation format could work for Star Wars. They were talking about that.
Totally.
Doing the special presentation. Like it's like 50 minutes, 52 minutes or so, pushing something out.
I've actually brought this up before. I'll bring it up again. But I've always thought that in a way to finish the Clone Wars, they could always just do Clone Wars movies, like just stitch 3 episodes together. Because that's how the Clone Wars theatrical release was made. It was meant to be a couple of arcs, right? Like a couple of episodes, like making one story arc. And I feel like they could just do that, right? Like make a Clone Wars animated movie. They could just make a live action thing as well, make it like an hour. And yeah. I mean, episodic.
And the last,
So Star Wars was inspired by episodes, right?
That's right. The last 4 episodes of season 7 were like they could have been stitched together as a movie for Clone Wars.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they definitely can do that. That's good. Pitch it to Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
Send them a tweet or something.
Yeah. Tell them, Sean. Tell them.
We'll do it. Yeah. Actually, let's get it out there. Get a campaign going.
Yeah, let's do it. Sean, where can we mentioned it earlier, but where can our audience follow you on social media?
The easiest thing is just go on the website nerd-tropolis.com. All my socials are on there. Stay tuned for all the movie news, reviews, and trailers and interviews. It's a fun time to nerd out, just like with y'all. I had a joy tonight. This is really fun.
Oh, it was great having you. It was awesome having you. Kirk, it's been a while since we gave off your social handles, if you want to give off any.
Yes, you can find me pretty much everywhere at Designed by Kirk. And yeah, I think YouTube, Twitter, everything.
And at Orbitkey.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And Orbitkey, of course. Yes. Plug the Star Wars collection in there. If you want to get organized with some Star Wars stuff,
yeah.
Go over to Orbitkey.
Yeah, we're doing a giveaway right now for Star Wars Orbitkeys. So throw your name in the hat. You know, you can find the link in the description of the podcast episode down below, or on our Discord server. Just about anywhere we are, you can find the giveaway link. So definitely throw your name in the hat. So thank you, Kirk. Thank you, Orbitkey. And thank you, Sean, for joining us. Awesome to have you. And to all our audience, go check out Nerdtropolis. All right, so before we wrap it up here, definitely wanted to update you guys on the YouTube progress. We're about halfway there. So our audience is on YouTube. You can finally find us there at SW Escape Podcast. YouTube channel is called Star Wars Escape Pod. You know it. And we're about 2 years into the schedule. We got 2 years to go worth of episodes to catch up until the weekly releases. We do have a Christmas and a New Year's episode around the corner, so that's going to be fun. We'll be doing some Star Wars trivia and just talking the Star Wars subjects you know and love from the Escape Pod. We're looking forward to having Kirk, Darian, Blake, you know, all the regulars that you have been hearing for the last couple weeks on for that one as well. And catch us on Snipped. Go check us out on Snipped. You can catch highlights of the show. You can use the tag at SW Escape Podcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram with the tag at SW Escape Podcast as well. Link for our Discord is in the description below, and you can tune in on any podcasting platform in the galaxy. We're currently hosted by Podbean, which you can find us on the featured TV and movies. I think it is TV and movies page right now, which is a really convenient way to listen to us. So go check out Podbean if you're looking for a good podcast app to tune in on. And lastly is Swell, a fantastic way to get in touch with us on the show. We post questions of the week on Swell. And in 2023 onwards, we're going to be trying that out as a new way to interact with our audience. We've had quite a few replies already. So thank you to those of you who've discovered the show through Swell for tuning in and checking those out. Feel free to leave a reply on the Swells. The app in the App Store is called Swell Talk. And that's all the Star Wars news we got for today. So shoot us a voicemail or email, swescapepodcast@gmail.com. Leave us a 5-star review. And may the Force be with you.